Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm the Whiskey Anorak and this is review 6C, which concludes the 6 series of reviews that I've been doing. And this particular one is a comparison, as all C videos are. And the comparison is going to be the subject of 6A, which is this Torabhaig that was bottled as part of the Mystery Malt Series 5 from the Thompson brothers. I reviewed it in 6A and I think it's pretty good. In 6B, I then talked about gimmicks in whiskey because, you know, that big question mark made me sort of think about that kind of thing. So I showed a few bottles, gave my opinion on gimmicks in general. You may have noticed that I didn't include any packaging on, on that video. If you watched 6B, and that's because the first thing that I do is throw that packaging away and recycle it because I think that it's just pointless, to be honest. If you're buying whiskey online from an online retailer, the amount of packaging they put around it anyway, like in terms of like cardboard or the inflatable plastic wraps that you sometimes get, a box is just unnecessary, and that's a whole different topic in terms of gimmicks is outer packaging, but I'm just not going to go there because I don't engage with it. I just throw it away. So I focused on the bottles and labels and concepts and stuff like that generally. So this is 6C, and I'm going to pour the glasses now so they can get opening up. I like to do comparisons because I think it's very useful to directly compare two whiskies together, but you don't have to compare two whiskies. If you've only got one bottle, you can compare it to itself, and that can be a learning experience. I could pour a glass, I could leave it for half an hour, add some water, taste it, smell it, and then I could pour a second glass of the same whiskey and also compare that to one that's opened up for a while, and you can see what's similar and what changes over time. So the winner of the public vote was this one, so thank you for voting. I basically, this time I've kept it a bit more simple than I've done in the past because I just wanted to directly compare this one to another Torabhaig, and I only have two in my collection, so it didn't seem, normally what I do is I choose one myself and then I put 2 or 3 bottles out to a vote, and the winner is the other one that I compare. But because I've only got 2 bottles, I thought I'll just put it out to a vote, and the one that won is this Torabhaig right here, which I'll talk about in a little bit more detail after it's opened up. I had 2 points that I wanted to cover as well quickly. The first one is, I mentioned in the last review, and I want to try and give accurate information. So the last time I bought a bottle from Fragrant Drops was, and this one's a Laphroaig as well, which is a 12-year-old, and it's really good. I think it's a refill ex-bourbon barrel, and there was only a few bottles because I think it was a leaky cask, 83 bottles. This was released around August, September last year, 2025, and it was one of the last bottles that I bought from them for a couple of reasons. And essentially, I said in the last video that they don't state the status of chill filtering. They don't state whether it's natural color or anything like that. As of the recent releases, which I think is from January onwards when they started to release them, they do now state it. What they've done is they've pushed the address over at the bottom, essentially, and they've put on there unchill filtered, undiluted, and uncoloured, which is great. And it's obviously, I'm sure other people may have contacted them in the same way that I did, and that they have changed it so it is on the label where it matters. And I'm really glad to hear about that. So just to make sure I'm giving accurate information, that they do now state it on the label, so that's very good news. They do state it on the website, and they have done for a while, but I just think in this day and age you have to have it on the label, and they do now, so they're obviously listening, which is a great thing. And they have bottled some great stuff. That particular one is well up there, and I will be reviewing it at some point. The other thing is, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Thompson brothers. Now, I listened to a podcast this week on my way home from work. It was called Not Another Whiskey Podcast, which I hadn't actually listened to before. And the only reason I found out about it was because I had an email from the Thompson brothers mailing list, not directly, and they basically just said that they're on this podcast. So I thought, well, I'll have a look and see if it's all right, and it was quite good. They were talking about the industry in general. They were talking about the visitor centre at Clynelish, how it's closed, and obviously that's led to some job losses and things like that, and how it's not very good. And just talking about the industry in general, like Diageo, and just, yeah, it was quite interesting. But there was just 1 or 2 things that just turned me off a bit, and I don't know which brother said it or whether it was both of them because I was driving. It's obviously audio only. They sound a bit similar to me. They referred to us, the people buying their bottles, as consumers, which I took a little bit of umbrage to. I thought that is not a respectful way to refer to people who are buying, smelling and tasting and enjoying your bottles and researching it before they do, and giving it the respect that it deserves, really, because they're bottling some really good stuff at good prices generally as well. And they referred to what I would call customers as consumers, and whether it's meant or not, that does for me carry a negative connotation, because it makes it sound as if you're a mindless drone who just buys things because they look pretty, or doesn't do research and is just just follows the trends and all that sort of stuff. And I don't think for most whiskey fans, which I would imagine is the majority of their clientele, are not passive consumers, the people who are looking into this stuff and trying to buy quality. I don't think that's the way to do it, and it's alienating for me, and it did turn me off quite a bit and just made me think, well, obviously I'm not going to boycott them, but I just hope that success doesn't go to the head. And I'm not saying that it is just because of a comment like that, but it's just the sort of thing that irks me, and I just don't like to hear it. I've heard it before from someone from Blackadder. I think she was called Hannah, and she's the daughter of the founder, basically, Robin. And she gave a really good interview. I think it's for Southport Whisky Club, one of their videos, online tastings. And essentially, she's very candid about a lot of things, but she did refer to customers as consumers, and it just made me think, it just shows a lack of respect, just from the use of language. So that was something that annoyed me a little bit. But so that I'm not carrying on too much about that, it's just something that annoys me, and it always has, because in this context of whiskey, and when you're researching and you're making sure that you're buying something good, to be called a consumer is just a bit disrespectful. So please stop it. Also, this bottle, last time I had to do a double take on it because I was absolutely convinced that it said non-chill filtered natural color on it. It does not. I did think it had, but what happened was on the website it does say that, but which I'd just been reading, but on here it does not actually say it. So it should say it. So please, in future, Thompson Brothers, if you ever see this, can you please say it? So to get into this other bottle then, which was the winner, so thank you for voting. I I think this is a really good bottle. So I'm just going to read out the details. I'll hold it up first. I will say that this bottle, you can see sediment in the bottom of it. It goes very cloudy when you add water to it, and the viscimmetry is very thick indeed. And you can probably tell from the colour that there's some sort of sherry involved with it. So I'm just going to read out exactly what it is. Just in case, I have put on the vote, I did put some notes, but just to go through in a little bit more detail. So this is aged in a PX cask. It's a single cask Signature Reserve from Torabhaig, which I know I'm probably saying not exactly correct, so apologies about that. Distilled on the 14th of January 2019, bottled at cask strength on the 15th of September 2025. So it's 6 years old, going on 7, basically, just under 7. Exclusively selected by Torabhaig Distillery, cask number 92, bottle number 141326. So you're even getting not just the outturn, but what number your individual bottle is, so you can see where it was in the bottling run. Mine's about halfway. And then it obviously has the location, and it's bottled at 60.8%. So pretty powerful cask strength there. Welcome to the Torabhaig Way. We're an independent distillery with a passion for exploring subtle, elegant flavours. Aged solely in PX casks with our signature coastal peat flavours, part of a rare and limited Signature Reserve series from Torabhaig Distillery. Each bottle is drawn from one hand-chosen cask. And that's pretty much it. It does have a QR code that takes you to a website which gives you a little bit further information. For some reason, I have another bottle which is the Sound Asleep batch strength, and it actually tells you that in the grain phenols when it was malted, and actually the in glass phenols. On this one, it doesn't say anything on the bottle about that, but if you go on the website, it does say that the malt at the malting stage it was above 78. I have got it 78.4 parts per million, in case you're really worried. It doesn't give the in glass in this case. I don't know whether it was just a step that was skipped, but yeah, it doesn't tell you, but it's definitely quite on the smoky side. And it also tells you the barley variety, which is Concerto, so that's like a high yielding grain, and it tells you the yeast varieties used as well. So it's all good information. Usually that is on the label for whatever reason. Maybe it's because it's a special edition. They have excluded it. So yeah. So what I'm going to start by doing is by smelling each one of these. So I have to bear in mind as well is that this one is bottled at 46.3% and this one is bottled at 60.8%. So what I'm thinking in terms of comparison is comparing the cask types. This is a Pedro Jimenez fully matured. This is a first fill bourbon fully matured, and just trying to see how it interacts, essentially, how the spirit interacts with the cask contents and how that produces variety. That's what I'm interested in because I'm an absolute anorak. So initially salty, touch of sweet at the start on the nose. Definitely vanilla. It's coastal. It's peat, like a Highland coastal hybrid on the peat. And it has got some fruit coming through as well on the nose for this one. Just completely different. I've compared these two a little bit before, and I will say that it does work very well. Sometimes peat and sherry can go wrong and it doesn't match very well, and you can end up with, you can end up with the peat overshadowing the sherry, or sometimes if it's left in cask too long, if it's particularly strong cask like this one is, the sherry can overpower the rest of the malt and basically exclude a lot of the more subtle flavors that you might pick up. In this case, I would say that they've bottled it at the right time. So it's just under 7 years. I think if they would have left this to like 10 or 12, I think that the cask would have been a little bit too much dominant, to be honest. But as it is, it's got like a barbecue, meaty, almost a sort of like gravy note to it. It's definitely smoky, but it's like a sort of bacon smoke. Very different. And it could be because I do believe, I mean, I don't know the details about this, but it could be that they've used different yeast varieties as far as I know, or even different grain varieties. Obviously, in this case, it doesn't tell you the level of detail which you normally get with the official bottlings, but that could be accounting for some of that. You're definitely getting that sherry influence from the PX. It has got even more sort of like a syrupy sweetness on the nose a little bit at the start. Very interesting, and just, yeah, just such an interesting thing to compare two whiskies that are in, completely different casks. So on the actually, I'll do sensations for both to see if that's changed. Sweet, salty, sour, a little bit sour, but ending in bitter salt. That's what I'm getting off that. Quick sip of water. Sweet, quite a bit sweeter on arrival. It's very, very salty, more intense as you would expect from a cask strength. I'm not getting sour, I'm getting more bitter, but that sweetness is carrying on a lot further through than it does for this one. And it's very, very salty, I have to say. On the taste, go back to this one. Now, if you remember from review 6.8, I did think that the taste and the smell did match very well. It's quite a one-to-one thing, which you don't always get with whiskey. Sometimes you get quite a bit of variation between the smell and the taste, but in this case, it's very, very similar. Slightly sweet peat, vanilla, oak, like a dry oak. The peat fades and then you're left with a bit of apple, and that vanilla carries all the way through, and it's definitely salty, sea salt taste to it as well. So this, and the taste, the PX. Like I say, it's quite oily, significantly more oily than this one, because obviously it's at higher strength. It's like an oily barbecue taste. It's got a bit of sweetness to it, dark raisins, like overly dried raisins, and it definitely has like a bacony, smoky taste to it. And the aftertaste, quite dry, and it just tastes like a fire that's gone out, to be honest, in some ways, but with that sweetness from the raisin going all the way through. If you've not watched my channel before, I'm not overly into giving highly detailed tasting notes because I think that's something that should be left to yourself to figure out. I just try and give the basics. I don't want to spend a lot of time on tasting notes, really. I just want to, which is a bit funny when you're doing a comparison, but I'm trying to sort of compare just, you know, beyond just the smell and the taste and compare the quality as well, which is a bit harder to do when you've got a bottle that you can't see inside of. But yeah, my tasting notes are not that detailed, even though when I smell and taste, obviously I do get subtleties and things like that. I'd rather tell you that a whiskey, I get subtleties from it, or I think it's basic, or I think it's simple, complex, whatever it is. I'd rather just tell you that and leave for you to find out what you can smell and taste, because most of the time when I watch reviews, I don't agree with what the people are saying that they smell and taste, and I'd rather just make my own mind up, to be honest. But I think a lot of the time we can agree on, you know, I could agree that this is smoky and meaty, and this is lighter and more vanilla than this. So I try and just focus on the basics like that. So in terms of the quality of what's in the bottle, when I add water to this, which I'm going to do right now, you will see the symmetry. Well, you might not, because my camera setup probably isn't good enough for that. But in person, you will see the symmetry, and it's quite thick, and across both of them, it lasts a long time in the glass. I will just hold those two up, just on the off chance that you can see anything. Let's swirl them a little bit. Don't normally do that, but I'm just doing it to try and make it visible, which it may not be. But I can see, holding up to the light there, that it's very heavy, and having tried this in the week, I can say that between the two, I think it's a bit thicker here, but you'd expect that for a higher alcohol content, but it's very high in this one as well. You do see sediment in this bottle. I can't see any in here, but what I can say is that both of them do turn cloudy, so that's a good sign. It's definitely not overly filtered in both bottles, so that's good. So whilst I'm waiting for the water to do its magic, Torabhaig, I do think generally is a distillery that you should look out for. I don't think that it's quite ready yet. Generally, I think it needs a few more years to really give the best of itself. But I mean, I'm not tasting this and thinking that it's too young. Maybe some of the initial releases were like that, but I'm just really keen to see what it's going to be like in a few years once it gets to like 10, 12. And I really think it's going to be an interesting distillery to watch, to be honest. And yeah, let's just go back to this. And normally I would give this more time, and when I smell and taste, I do give it more time. I'll put the water in, I'll wait 15 minutes, and then I'll smell it and taste it. But obviously, because I'm doing the review, I'm going to sort of hurry through things a little bit quicker than I normally would. I've not been tasting this week because I had a few days off from drinking, which I do every now and again. I think it's useful for everyone to do that. I know that's something that some reviews talk about. Sometimes it's something I want to talk about, which is every so often just give yourself a few days off. If you're drinking whiskey every night, it's enjoyable, and you may, you know, but you do need to give your liver a break, and you do need to give yourself that break just so that you're not having it every night, and just to prove that you can do it, to be honest. And I always feel refreshed, and when I come back to whiskey or whatever spirit I'm drinking after a break, I always appreciate it that bit more, and having that break does make me feel a little bit better as well. So it's something I recommend that you do. So I did that this week from Saturday till Wednesday. I didn't have anything, and then yeah, I started doing a little bit of comparison last night for this review. So let's just do a little smell now. Definitely the peat has subsided now I've added the water, but I know it'll come back in a little bit. A lot more fruity now, peach, apple, the vanilla's still there, and it's definitely got that salty tang, but on the nose that seems to have died down a little bit on the nose for this one. That for symmetry is so thick. It's one of the thickest that I've seen, to be honest, in any bottle that I can think of. It's very, very thick. But of course, it's at high strength, so you would expect that, and it's been in a very active cask with a lot of previous contents in. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a bit of sherry sloshing around in the bottom of this cask when it got over to them on Torabhaig Distillery. So on the nose, I'd say that the sweetness has gone down a little bit, as has the initial smokiness. And you'll find that after having been left in the glass for a while is that you'll get access to some more of the subtleties, because instantly when you smell and taste this, it's a bit of a whack in the face, particularly even in comparison to this. Although this doesn't feel weak, this is quite impactful, but given time, it does reveal itself with some complexity. And yeah, it's meaty. It smells like a barbecue that's gone out. It smells like raisins and dark fruits. The peat actually tastes a little bit sharper now after some time. I'm getting some maltiness coming through. Now that the sherry's, I'm not getting it. I was getting quite a lot of the sherry at the start, and now that's sort of subsiding a little bit. It's oily at the start, as is this one, but the oiliness, I wouldn't say it's like a thick oiliness, if that makes sense. I'd say it's on the thinner side, but it's still there. I would be really interested. I wish that they used worm tubs, and I think that would match very well, particularly with this type of cask. But unfortunately, they use shell and tube. But it's still pretty decent. I think they have long fermentation times as well, and there's certainly a bit of a yeasty note to it. Yeah, it's very enjoyable. So to compare it to this one on the taste, it's so far apart. It almost, if you were to taste these two blind and you hadn't tasted Torabhaig before, I think you might struggle to identify it as the same. I certainly would. This is very light. It has opened up quite a bit more now, and there's a bit more subtlety. There's like a herbal quality that's coming out of it a little bit now. And I know that it will come out of this given a bit more time as well. But yeah, I think that Torabhaig suits sherry very well, particularly done in a PX cask like this for not too long. I think for longer maturation than refill bourbon or first fill bourbon would be better. In terms of which I enjoy more, I always have to lean towards the cask strength ones, because I just think it's, you just get more for your money, and it's just a bit more dynamic. And I know that it'll change in the glass a bit more than this one does, but this one's no slouch. And if you're looking for a start in getting into Torabhaig, then a similar bottling, maybe not the exact same one, unless you want to take your risk with the mystery malt. But there are similar bottles. I think they've just released one called Taigh, Taigh, which is like a more standard bottling, and that's bottled at 46%, and I think it's about £45, something like that. So that's pretty good value, as it is in April 2026 now. So yeah, I would recommend to start with that. And yeah, I've enjoyed the comparison. I hope you have. Next time in 7A, I'm going to be looking into a farm distillery, and I'm going to be talking about farm distilleries in 7B a bit more generally. Also, very small distilleries as well, not necessarily just farm ones, but there's probably a few that you can think of that I'm probably referring to. So it's going to be one of them that I review in 7A as well. And I think that's pretty much it. What else? I have been thinking recently how when I started on my whiskey journey, I tried all the basic whiskies. I tried, like the Glenfiddich, Glenmorangie. I branched into Tobermory and Bunnahabhain after that. And I think that's still a good place to start for most people, is just to, buy a few of the supermarket ones and then go into the independent retailers a bit more. But what I sort of think now is that I think that for anyone who's got a few years under the belt, the best thing that you can do now to introduce yourself to new distilleries is, and this isn't the only independent bottler, but it's just a beacon of value really, is the Signature 100 collection. I've bought a few bottles from them where it's been the first time I've had a bottle from a particular distillery. Ben Rinnes was one, Balmenic was another. Ben Nevis as well. I got one of those recent bottlings that they did. And to be honest, even though they may not be the best bottles ever, but what does that even mean anyway? They're all decent quality and value for money. And I think if you've got a few years under your belt, you should try and you want to be introduced to a new distillery, you can't do much better than actually just getting an independent bottling from, say, Signature 100, and yeah, and just introducing yourself that way rather than risking disappointment from certain larger producers who don't focus as much on quality. Now, it's not just Signatory, there are other independent bottlers who offer value for money, but to be honest, in terms of the ratio of, you know, what's in the bottle to the cost, Signatory is leading the way, and it's because they bought Andrew Simonton. He bought a lot of casks when they were cheap, and he can afford to do that. Whereas, you know, other bottlers, you'll often see similar bottles for, you know, 20-30 pounds more. And yeah, I think that probably will change with the downturn that's happening currently. But yeah, that's just my little bit of my little nugget of advice there for anyone who's got a few years under your belt. Don't always feel you have to go the traditional route of trying the official bottlings first, like the standard 10 or the 12. I did that at first, but I got bored of it, and I much rather just try, you know, more unique expressions, to be honest. And I find that I've been enjoying doing that. And you know, there's some distilleries I haven't even tried the standard bottlings. I've only had independent, and I'm happy with that because my experiences have largely been very good. So that's pretty much it from me. I hope you enjoyed the comparison. At some point, I'll review this as well. Won't be for a while probably because we've got a lot of other bottles in my queue. But I hope that you've enjoyed this, and if you stick around for the next episode, like I said, which will be 7A, I will be looking at a particular farm distillery. So thank you for watching. Goodbye for now.